Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about situations that make us cringe, either for ourselves or sometimes for other people. We discuss the extent to which we overestimate how much other people notice us. And Martin reminds me of a hilarious tale about his socks and a fire. Awkward.
No, can't hear you, mate.
You must be able to hear me now.
Oh, yeah, I can now, yeah.
You've got a ghostly hue around you.
Yeah, I've sort of just got the... Well, it's dark outside, isn't it? The evenings are really drawing in.
It's autumn, mate.
It is autumn, so I've just got my spotlight just on my notes, really. So I've got a glow coming up from my notes. But anyway, should we crack on then? What we want to talk about?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, what do you want to? Is there anything that springs to mind, or shall? Because I have got some notes prepared, but that normally doesn't really dictate how you want to proceed, because you normally feed me a bit of a false line as to what we want to talk about, then go somewhere else.
You're never going to let that lie, are you?
No.
I made one error last week. The only error I've made in 87 broadcasts. And now it's just going to be forever. You're going to be saying that I asked you to research one thing and then ended up talking about something else.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you set the bar.
It sounded all right, though, didn't it?
It did, actually, as it turned out. We managed to cobble something together, which was quite remarkable, really.
Yeah.
But it did. I felt it did make me feel a little bit awkward.
No, it's quite good for you, that one.
What's that? Well, you know where that segue's going.
Yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah,
that's actually,
exactly.
I didn't even see that. You didn't telegraph that one.
No, I didn't, mate. No. But that's what I want to talk about today, if that's all right with you. And hopefully we can come up with some sort of consensus as what we're talking about.
I think it's a much maligned emotion, awkwardness. It's not really, you don't think about it too much, do we?
We don't really. I mean, it was one of your ideas, but it's one that sort of resonated with me. And I'm sure most people, or they can feel a bit orcs, as the kids say. Yeah. And that happens quite a lot, doesn't it?
Well, I'd spend a lot of time feeling awkward if I was you, I expect.
Exactly, yeah. It's my default. Anyway, yeah, before we start.
Yeah.
Bit of feedback from last week's show.
Yeah, it is a show, isn't it? It is a show, I think.
Yeah.
We make a show of ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, I feel like I'm bigging it up, really. It's just a couple of old geezers rambling on, but yeah.
I don't think you're bigging it up. We're 87 episodes in now. We've got well over 10,000 downloaded episodes. I mean, that's good. It's more than we thought we were going to get when we started.
I thought we'd run out of things to say after 2 or 3 weeks. So, yeah,
some people might argue that we did.
But, yeah, feedback from last week.
Yeah, go on.
Just got, it was my daughter again, who's often comes back with things to say about what we've been discussing. As you know, well, my youngest daughter, Lizzie, as you know, she's a teacher.
Yeah.
And she was particularly interested in, we're talking about the growth mindset, because it wasn't something I'd really, or a phrase I'd really heard of before you sprung it upon me last week. But she was saying that they have what they call, once a week, they have a lesson that she sometimes gets involved in teaching. It's called the PSHE lessons.
Yeah.
Which, do you remember? Do you know anything about those?
Well, I remember my own children having them. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm certain that wasn't around when we were at school, was it? It wasn't.
No.
But which stands for personal, social, health, and economic education.
Yeah.
I had to write that down because there's no way I was going to be able to remember that off the top of my head. And in that, I mean, she gets involved in teaching, as I say, and she uses the growth mindset thing quite a lot. And they use it to overcome or to help children overcome problems in lessons. And she calls it like getting out of the metaphorical learning pit independently.
Nice.
Which is most useful for the teaching of creative subjects. Other subjects where you get a lot of the information spoon-fed to you in the creative environment, you have to come up with your own answers. So,
yes, well, I mean, there was an example of that, wasn't there, when I did a very nice piece of art and you belittled it and poo-pooed it, and your daughter was very encouraging. So that is growth mindset stuff. It's like, no, open up your horizons, open up your idea to the possibility that it's okay, and you can improve and you can get enjoyment out of stuff, whereas you put a roadblock in the way.
That's why she's a teacher. I'm just a sort of a cultural thug.
You are a cultural thug.
Well, no, it's just you dragged that out of me. It's not my normal default.
Well, you described yourself as that. I mean, what would Freud say?
I don't know if I see him, I think he's been talking a lot of nonsense. But anyway,
you've only got to listen to your Spotify playlist to know you're a cultural thug.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But should we move on from that then before we discuss me being a cultural thug for way too long?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just another point just before we start.
Yeah.
Obviously, we just passed the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist bombings, which or terrorist atrocities, which it's been dominating everywhere, hasn't it? But there was a particular documentary on Netflix. I don't know whether you saw it, called Turning Point. It was strange because coincidentally the recovery service in Maidstone used to be called Turning Point around about that time when the bombings were happening.
Did you think the Netflix documentary was about that?
I thought that's a bit weird. Yeah, have a look at that. But that was quite an interesting one because it went back right to the beginning of how the whole situation arose, really, and looking at the roots of it, going back to sort of the Russian invasion of Afghanistan back in 1979 and tracing the timeline forward. So I found that quite an interesting one. Coincidentally, that in 2001, when it first started, that was the start of my lost decade between then and 2011 before I went into recovery. So
are you blaming Al Qaeda for your your alcoholism?
They spurned it on. I couldn't deal with it. Yeah, so that Bin Laden got a lot to answer for. Anyway, so that was the start of my lost decade. So that was 10 years in the wilderness. I'm just coming up to nearly 10 years in recovery. So it's a bit of a halfway point, that, wasn't it?
Congratulations. So what we're talking about, awkwardness.
Feeling socially awkward, or awkwardness generally, but certainly socially awkward. I mean, so many people have come into groups over the years and have said they started using drink and drugs as a way of overcoming social awkwardness. Yeah. Now, I remember myself personally using drink as a social crutch, as it sort of seemed to give me more confidence in certain social situations. The trouble was with that, and as time went by, I needed more and more to achieve the same response. And I used to feel really awkward without a drink in my hand. It was almost like a prop that I needed there that helped me. So regardless of the effect that it was having on me, having that in my hand also seemed to give me an extra bit of confidence. But it's not until I went into recovery that I found I didn't need it after all. So it was strange that I'd relied on it for so long, and when it was taken away, I was all right.
It's funny you mentioned that the thing about needing to have a drink in your hand, and if you're out at a social situation, because I'm reading a book at the moment about awkwardness, which is kind of what prompted the idea. If anybody's interested in understanding awkwardness, it's called Cringe-worthy: How to Make the Most of Uncomfortable Situations, and it's very good indeed. Anyway.
Okay. That's not because I did come across during my research. I come across a book called Cringe-worthy: A Theory of Awkwardness. It was by Melissa Dahl. Is it the same author? Same book. Oh, good. Okay, so we're literally on the same page then.
Oh, we are. Well, have you read it then?
No, I haven't. No, it's just I've read it. It came up, and I used extracts from that when I was looking at my compiling my notes. So.
Well, it's a very good book, and it's just what you were talking about there, being in a social situation, feeling like you need a drink in your hand, kind of reminds me of a bit in the book where she's talking about something that psychologists describe as the spotlight effect, where we get this notion into our heads that everybody else is watching us, and that everybody's noticing what we're doing. And that's the thing we're trying to kind of quell when we're holding a drink, or we don't know what to do at a social situation. We think, oh, well, I'm standing on my own at a party. Everyone's going to be looking and thinking, who's that sad sap? When in reality, we have a tendency to massively overestimate the extent to which other people are noticing us. It's like most people they don't give a stuff what we're doing or what we're not doing. But when we have this idea that all eyes are upon us, it becomes intensely uncomfortable. And it was also reading that, I thought, well, crikey, I'll bet that happens to people in recovery a hell of a lot. If you're going to a party and you're saying, oh, I don't want to have a drink, you probably think, oh, everyone's looking at me now and thinking, why isn't that person drinking?
That's certainly, I noticed it an awful lot more when I first went into recovery, because I was struggling with the concept myself. Yeah. So, I did feel very awkward, and it had been so many years of in that situation I would be drinking. So when that's taken away, or when that's removed, I should say, you're going to naturally feel awkward. And I did feel awkward at first explaining it to people. Perhaps I'd just make an excuse like saying, I'm driving tonight, or, I'm on antibiotics and I can't drink. But I felt that was avoiding the subject. So after that happened a couple of times, I said, no, I've got an issue with alcohol. I can't, I'm in recovery and I no longer drink. I've chosen not to drink anymore because that obviously feeds my alcoholism.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things about awkwardness. Our tendency when we feel awkward in situations is to avoid the situations. And of course, avoiding anything that makes us feel awkward just perpetuates the kind of paralysis that awkwardness creates. So that decision that you made to stop making excuses for yourself and just tell the truth, that was, I don't know what it felt like at the time. It's probably a bit scary, but actually, ultimately, it's liberating, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah, because I found after I'd become used to saying that to people, the feedback was very good and people became very interested in that. So it became almost like an icebreaker because most people think, well, I used to come a lot of people, certainly at dinner parties, but they feel perhaps they drink a little bit too much. And they'd never, although they hadn't got a major problem, the thought of not having a drink seemed to be quite scary. And I think it is to a lot of people. Right,
you kind of hit upon the point I was going to make there, because I wonder whether when you started to be honest about your issue with drink and relieve yourself of the awkwardness, my suspicion is that other people who came into contact with you probably started to feel awkwardness, either awkwardness about, I don't know what to say to him, or awkwardness about, oh, crikey, I wonder if he's looking at me and thinking you're hitting the sauce a little bit.
Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, it does shift. And that used to make me feel a bit awkward. And if I saw them feeling, it was almost like vicarious awkwardness. I'd take on their awkwardness. So it could have been a bit of a vicious circle. So I used to do it, and I still do. I deliver it in quite a soft way.
Well, that is another aspect of awkwardness. The awkwardness we feel, the displaced awkwardness, the awkwardness we feel on behalf of somebody else. Do you find that difficult to watch?
I do, but there's something quite delicious about that, really. In some ways, it's a bit like Ricky Gervais in The Office,
with exactly like that.
When he tells a really bad joke, or he says something really inappropriate, and there's this silence, and so I find that as a looking in from the outside. If you're watching it on a TV program like that, I find it really entertaining. But yeah, when you're in the midst of it, it can be quite tricky.
Okay, so actually, when you see someone else in that position, you don't find it difficult, do you? You don't find it uncomfortable to watch.
No. Say, for example, you're in the company of some people, and you're right in the middle of a domestic row, for example. One of the parties walks out, and it leaves this awkward void. Then I'd feel awkward, certainly. But I feel quite detached from it, watching it if someone's making a fool of themselves on the Dragon's Den or in the office or whatever. Yeah. I mean, that happens to everyone, doesn't it? Those situations, we've all been there where we will forget someone's name, for example. That can be quite tricky, can't it?
Oh,
especially if you're trying to introduce them to someone else. That's really bad. And I always try and help other people out if they're in that situation. Certainly, if I know the person's name, and I can jump in and sort of try and seamlessly ease in the way. But if I can see someone's feeling a bit awkward, like being dressed inappropriately, that's an awkward thing for me. That's always worried me. It really has. It's in case you turn up and you're wearing the wrong thing or whatever. But
has it ever happened?
I think it has. Yeah, when you turn up somewhere where perhaps you're over. I've tended to overdress. So I'm a bit too smart for what I should be. I should have been a bit more casual. Yeah, but I think it reminds me of a girlfriend I once had, and we went to a dinner dance. We were staying overnight in a hotel, and she took 3 dresses with her in case she had to change it, because she'd say she'd feel really awkward if someone had a same or very similar dress on. And she had, but not only did she take an alternative, she took an alternative as well, and kept those up in the room just in case, to avoid that awkwardness, which I know a lot of people, and certainly ladies that go and have similar dresses, we know that can make both parties feel very awkward. Sometimes at the fellowship meetings, like AA, or certainly at AA. The others don't seem to be quite so bad, but you get these periods where they want someone to share, and no one wants to share. Everyone shrinks away, and you get a silence, and they never pick someone or sort of hurry anyone up. It's just left hanging, and the longer it's left hanging, the longer it seems to go on, and eventually someone will break out and say, right, you know. And
because people find silence awkward, don't they?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah, tremendous.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with it because it kind of goes with the territory. But what you're saying there about the fellowship meetings reminds me of something my daughter said to me. You know, while obviously she's at university and the teaching in the last year has all been online, and she says that they'll go for little sort of drop-ins and seminars, and there might be kind of 10, 15 people on the call, and everyone, apart from a couple of people, have got their cameras off.
Oh, yeah.
And you think, oh, God, that's, I mean, apart from it being a bit disrespectful. And then, of course, when something's thrown out by the tutor, you know, a question's thrown out, people who've not got their cameras on, they feel even less inclination to answer. And my daughter, she says, it feels so, I feel so embarrassed for the tutor. So I feel like when there's a question, I have to answer it because otherwise I have to tolerate the discomfort, the awkwardness of there being this nothingness.
I totally understand that. I really do get that. Certainly when I'm facilitating online meetings, any more than 1 or 2 seconds silence and I will chip in.
Will you?
And get other people to talk as well. I just don't like it. I'll just say it feels like it's a reflection upon me not doing my job correctly as a facilitator.
Yeah, that's your awkwardness, isn't it?
Yeah. It's sometimes, I mean, another thing I struggle with sometimes, you may have an opinion on, is small talk.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find that awkward.
That's because you're not very interesting.
But that's what it is, I think, sometimes. I think that's it's much easier. But if I had something to say or something, if I was more flamboyant, perhaps just bowl up to people and flounce in. But I can't sometimes. Sometimes I do feel small talk when I do get engaged in it. I think I'm almost I feel like it's a waste of time sometimes. Right.
So a couple of thoughts there. I share that with you. I hate small talk. As an introvert, I can't abide small talk. It feels like not only is it a complete waste of time, but it feels like it exhausts me at a ridiculous rate. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that you've made that point following on from a very relevant point, which is the point about silence. If you were more comfortable with silence, you wouldn't feel the necessity to make small talk so much.
Right, okay.
Because what you're doing is when you feel the need to make small talk, you're telling yourself that you are the one that is responsible for making sure the conversation continues.
Yeah.
Why do you have to be responsible for it? Why can't the other person be responsible?
I don't know, but certainly if both of you thought like that, never a word will be passed.
Should we try some silence now?
That'd make an interesting point in the. See, that's another point. I know. I think you've told me in the past. I know when we were first started to do these, it used to terrify me if we didn't have any. If there's a silence. Even though, I mean, in this situation, you can just edit that out. But I used to find that quite tricky. It doesn't worry me now because I know it can be.
Silences are better because they're much easier to edit.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're the friend of an episode rather than an enemy. That's
exactly.
Sure.
So if we did sit in silence now, how long would it be before it started to get really uncomfortable? I mean, with me, would it still be uncomfortable with me?
Probably not, but probably it'd only take 5 seconds, and I'd start to heat up under the collar. I wouldn't like it.
Would you go visibly red?
I probably would. Actually, something will happen. I wouldn't like it. Let's put it that way. I don't intend trying it either.
That's quite hilarious.
What about public speaking? A lot of people feel very awkward about that. I mean, personally, I don't. I really like it. I really like. I've always. It was always a. And again, it wasn't. It's not been affected by not having a drink to hand. But I've always enjoyed that buzz, that nervousness before you stand up, especially if you're waiting for it to come along, which is exactly like I used to feel before going on stage when we used to do gigs.
Yeah,
I used to love it. I was never nervous. As soon as I went on, that nervous anticipation went away. But I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I agree. I've never felt nervous doing public speaking. I'm okay with that. But I'll tell you what I do. Never felt awkward doing public speaking. But I'll tell you what does make me feel terribly awkward, and that is watching someone else make a bad presentation, or something where they're kind of really struggling over their words, and it goes back to the point I was making earlier. I find that incredibly difficult. And there's Melissa Dahl has a description for this. I think she calls it compassionate cringe, where you see someone struggling and you feel their struggle because you kind of see yourself in that position and you think, oh God, I can't watch this. It's almost like you're putting yourself in that place and imagining how horrible that would be for you. And you just want to rescue them, but there's nothing you can do. I find watching someone do something substandard in that way absolutely unbearable.
It is. It is tricky. It is tough, and I think you've got to be quite a heartless person to get any enjoyment out of that. That's for sure.
No, I think people do enjoy it, though. I think that the reason that people can be very cruel when someone is doing something like that is because it's like the same sort of syndrome with bullying. If you're in the crowd that are poking fun, you don't have to accept the possibility that could be you.
Right. Okay.
Whereas I find it very easy to slip into, God, that absolutely could be me.
Yeah, that's right. No, I do. That's right. It's when you're in the environment of that happening, it can be really bad. It can be really bad. But those awkward feelings, they can act as a bit of a, when we get an awkward feeling, I see them as a bit of a sort of a warning system of sorts, really. You know, it helps you realise when if you're gonna say something, or if you've said something that's perhaps not quite appropriate, you because you feel awkward after that, you've crossed a social boundary, don't you? And it's something you can learn from and make sure you don't do it again, unless you enjoy making yourself and other people feel awkward. But it's it's almost part of a learning curve on that one, isn't it?
It absolutely is. But I think that, again, is a really good point that I think is covered at the beginning of the book, which is don't take yourself out of awkward situations. If you find something awkward, step into it. Or if you feel like you've said something and you think, oh, I've made a terrible error there and it feels really awkward, step back into it, raise it with the person, say, listen, I just, I feel bad. I feel awkward about what I've just said to you, because the difference is then between going away with that awkwardness and giving yourself the opportunity to resolve it in the moment.
The point I wanted to go on to some of the research I did, which, as I say, touched on Melissa Dahl's work. So we're probably going across old ground here, perhaps. But when you've embarrassed yourself, what comes across in the research is that if that happens, what would you say to your closest friends if the same experience had happened to them? And that's the sort of thing you should say to yourself.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's don't worry about it, isn't it? It's all right.
It is.
Don't worry.
It is. But that's quite a tough one, isn't it, to do? But it's when I thought about it, I thought, yeah, that's probably quite a good idea, really, because I think we're quite quick. That's when we're talking about that, experiencing other people in awkward situations. We try and lend a hand, don't we, in trying to soften the blow, and that's what really we should do to ourselves if we do something that's embarrassing.
Yeah, I think it comes back to a kind of fundamental, foundational point of everything we've spoken about in every episode, which is around trying to improve your self-regard, trying to find a compassionate voice towards yourself, recognizing that you won't always do things right and you will make mistakes, but you haven't done things deliberately and you don't have to beat yourself up.
No, quite. And one of the other points I was looking at here, which sort of dovetails into that a little bit, or what you were saying earlier on about when you worry about saying the wrong thing.
Well, I had a situation like that yesterday. I'm running these group sessions for Spill at the moment. And so a couple of people came onto the call yesterday and I didn't know how to pronounce one of the people's names. And I thought, well, I'm not going to have a go at this because I could get it wrong. I thought, what do I need to do here? And obviously what I did was I asked her how to pronounce her name. Now, I know if I said that to my daughter, she'd say, oh God, that was awkward. But it's not as awkward as getting it wrong.
No, true.
No, it's much better that you put your hand up and say, listen, I don't have this information. You do. Could you tell me what it is? So as awkward as that might feel, it's much better than the alternative. And I think in those sorts of situations, it actually creates a connection with people rather than a disconnection.
And what happens, because sometimes you get embarrassing moments that pop back into your mind, don't you, that of things you've done in the past. Yeah. That can come back out of the blue sometimes. Have you got any advice how to deal with that? Because I know certainly from from an addict's point of view, we get these flashbacks about our bad behaviour in the past. And they can be quite excruciating sometimes. Nothing you can do about them because it's gone, and sometimes gone quite a long time ago, but suddenly you can get a reminder and something will pop up and you think, oh my God, yeah, that's so embarrassing. And you almost relive it.
Yeah, you do. Because, you know, your the memory for those sorts of things is remarkable. But there's another interesting thing in the book, and I can't remember what the term is for these people, but there are certain people who remember everything in their life. You know, they remember every day. So if you tell them, you know, 24th of April, 1986, they'll remember what was going on, you know. And funnily enough, they did some research with people who remember everything in their life and found that they didn't have that problem. You know, you'd think that they'd be having that problem all the time because they'd remember every single awkward situation they were ever in. But actually they don't. And the theory is that they don't because they see it in context. You know, it's like those little things that have happened in the context of a life. And so they don't kind of stick up so much. The reason those sorts of things disturb us is because they tend to be the things we remember. So we kind of fixate on them as if that's the only thing that's ever happened in our life. You know, you think about those awkward or embarrassing moments. And if you think back and one triggers another one and then it triggers another one, it's almost as if our entire life has been made up of those terrible, excruciating moments, which of course it hasn't. So I think the best thing to do there is to recognize that was a snapshot in time. It has gone. And whilst it, you know, might have been very painful at the time, try and laugh at yourself. I mean, you know, you won't have done things deliberately, will you?
No, you wouldn't. So I understand that. So you've got to contextualize it really, and say that it is one of those blips, really, when there's a lot of things that you've done that aren't embarrassing or were generally well thought through.
I think the other thing is something that might have caused us a feeling of excruciating awkwardness. Someone else might hear the story and think, well, it's not that bad, you know.
Quite, yeah.
So that's all about it's the difference in the way we perceive ourselves and the way other people perceive us.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So obviously we know that embarrassment is going to be part of life, then, isn't it? And we've got to accept it, and that from time to time that's going to happen. But that you touched upon it really there about humour. I mean, injecting humour into it can be a way of diffusing an awkward situation, can't it? But not everyone's good at doing that. Some people are better than others. I find it quite easy to do when you can relate perhaps an old embarrassing story, and I felt that sort of almost exorcises that as well. If you can make a joke out of something embarrassing you've done in the past and then tell it as a cringeworthy story, a bit like, you know, we touched on in the past when I talked about setting my socks alight on an early date with my first girlfriend, and that's it. And that was incredibly awkward at the time, but now it's funny, and now I can bring that up, and it's quite a funny anecdote. But at the time, it was awful.
Yeah, of course it was awful at the time, and it must have been excruciating. But I think that's a situation where you're kind of required to just accept it. You know, it was an accident, wasn't it? You didn't do it on purpose. It's just it's like the time I was working in a restaurant and the food that I'd served up wasn't ready to go out. So I put a plastic bowl over it and put it in the oven. And of course, the plastic bowl melted all over the food. And when I got it out of the oven, the chef said to me, he said, "Graham, do you put plastic bowls in the oven at home?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, don't fucking do it here then." And he threw it at me. Yeah, and when I think about it, I can remember if I was back in that moment now, it was excruciating, but I didn't do it on purpose, did I? I think you just got to, I think the rule here is you just got to give yourself a break, for God's sake. You know, we don't do things deliberately to mess up. We're just human.
We are human. But it is owning up to a mistake. That can be really awkward, can't it? Especially if it is a big. I mean, that was one which was quite easily rectified. I'd imagine they just had to cook up a meal for the
plate it up again. Yeah,
right. Yeah. But that's going to happen, isn't it? You know, owning up to mistakes. And also talking about like a taboo subject that I find awkward sometimes, and especially with your children. I mean, that's quite a tough one, isn't it? You do feel awkward. That's natural, again, isn't it?
I think it is natural, but I think it's like anything else around awkwardness. The more you do it, the less awkward it feels. You know, the first time you're sitting watching the telly and there's a sex scene on the program you're watching or whatever, it's like, the first time it probably feels a bit awkward, but just get over yourself. Blimey.
Yeah.
That's my advice. Get over yourself.
That's very good advice.
That's what I tell to most of my clients. Get over yourself, will you?
I was going to say, that's the backbone of your industry, isn't it?
Wise up. Sort yourself out.
We can crack on with a gratitude list if you like.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Do we do that?
Yep.
So out of your numbers 1 to 17 on that list, which you prepared some time ago, I know we haven't looked at number 8.
Oh, okay. So this is one that will resonate with you, but not every listener. It's computer football.
Oh, okay. Well, it resonates with me, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I can't remember who it was that said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. But whoever it was very wise. And one of the constants through my life, well, certainly since computers were created, and before computers, it was Subutio. But I've always enjoyed playing football games. When I was a kid, I used to play matches on my own, and I'd be in charge of both teams, and I'd write all the scores down and the scorers, and it kept me happy for hours. And then, of course, when computers came along, we had computer football and all the various incarnations of that. And if I look back through more than 5 decades now, it's been a constant companion of mine, and it's given me an enormous amount of pleasure. And it's one of those kind of few things, I think, in life that's been unremittingly pleasurable. It's only ever given me joy. I can leave it alone for months on end, but whenever I'm playing, really kind of losing myself or allowing my free child to have free reign, it's a lovely, enjoyable thing. I don't have to be any good at it. There's no kind of mark that I have to hit or result I've got to hit. It's just a lovely kind of relaxing way to spend some time. And I know you don't do this, but as I've got older, it's also been a really nice way of catching up with stuff that I want to listen to, because I turn the commentary right down and I listen to a podcast, so I can play and nourish my brain at the same time. So I'm very grateful for computerized football games.
I'll share that gratitude totally.
You can't have that. You've got to have your own.
Oh, no, I'm not going to piggyback. I'm not like you, just piggybacking on the back of other people's. That has changed recently when you've bothered to put a bit of work in and to actually get a list together. But yes, gratitude for this week, I would say, was being invited back down to a party down at the project we just finished, which was mainly a party for the residents where they're getting together because it was really over. They hadn't been able to get together because of COVID and all that sort of thing. And inviting, so all the residents were getting together and having a little bit of a soiree, and invited myself and Les, my business partner, back down to that.
Was there cake?
Well, you took your own food because, again, although there were some people, there was a lady who brought along some quiche that she'd homemade and this sort of thing, so it looked very nice. But it was just nice to be involved, to be invited to that. Well, they didn't need to.
No.
They could have quite easily, it would have run just as smoothly without us, and probably even better. But it was nice. So I was grateful for that. I thought that was a nice touch.
That is lovely. Yeah, so I suppose really I should have invited you round for tea after you fixed the hole in my kitchen ceiling.
You should have done, really, but I wouldn't have expected it of you, that's for sure. Then
you can come round for tea. You've got to bring your own food. How about that?
That's it. Yeah, that'd be good. So anyway, moving on to the Spotify search this week.
Yeah.
Do you remember the band called Athlete?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're a local band, weren't they? They come from Deptford, but they had a track called Awkward Goodbye, which I quite liked. I quite liked Athlete, I remember. It sort of took me a little bit back down memory lane with them. There's a few of their tracks I quite enjoyed in the past. I've never really got into to downloading or buying any of their stuff, but I've always had a sneaky respect. Yeah,
I'm not really familiar with any of their work. Is that what you put on the list?
No.
Oh.
No, it isn't. No. That was one of the ones that came up, Awkward Goodbye, because I quite liked that sentiment. I think we've all been there, haven't we?
Yep.
There was another track called One Awkward Fish by Benjamin Clementine, which I quite liked.
I like the name Benjamin Clementine. He sounds
it's a cracker, isn't it? And the one I'm going with is by a Norwegian rock band. Well, they're almost prog rocky, actually, which you'd quite enjoy it, I think.
Why have you got this idea that I like progressive rock?
Well, it's sort of soft and easy listening, and I know you like a bit of that. I know you like a bit of early. I know you like a bit of Genesis and that sort of thing.
I don't like Genesis.
Oh.
No. How do you like them apples?
I was trying to put you down by saying you like Genesis.
I don't like Genesis. I don't.
No one does.
I do have one Genesis album actually, which is Duke, and anybody who likes Genesis will know that would be the only album owned by someone who doesn't like Genesis, because everybody who does like Genesis hates that album.
No, I haven't got any. Mine, I have a Genesis free collection.
Anyway, go on.
Anyway, yes, this Norwegian rock band. So the track that's going on this week is Captain Awkward by the Moron Police, which are a Norwegian rock band. I like the name of them.
Yeah,
and I liked Captain Awkward. I thought, it's good. It's a nice track. It is a genuinely nice track. So have a listen to it when I put it on there. And
all right,
it's about time I put the link to that onto our Facebook page, so everyone can have a listen.
Why have you done that?
I wanted it to get to a certain point where there's plenty on there to listen to.
Oh, I suppose there's an even number now, is there, on there?
Yeah, 30.
Oh, God.
So that's me done, mate.
See you later.
Speak to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.